Welcome back, Addicts, to another comic-related video. I'm Josh, and today we're going to be talking about the newest issue of The Walking Dead, issue 182, The Commonwealth Grows. Now, there is a good amount that happens in this issue. We kind of just get to see the tour with Pamela just ending up, and them going into the next thread of the story. But there is a lot of little moments that I want to cover. So, if you're new to looking at this, basically I'll just go through the issue and kind of recap what happened, maybe pick out some few things that I noticed or liked, and then I'll probably go into, a rating for the issue and maybe some speculation. But anyway, getting right into it, we get to start off this issue with seeing a look at the sanctuary, and particularly we get to see John, which is the guy with, I guess, one messed up eye. He's the new leader of the sanctuary, and he's talking to this other character named Christopher, which there's a dialogue between two of them. I'm like, one of the things that Christopher says, I'm like, that's me. He's like, can we go shooting today? So I was like, yep, I sympathize with you. But he basically, John tells him, they're like, no, we got more important things to do. We got to make sure that everybody's doing their part with growing the food, because we need to provide more things so we can be stronger, so we can be better off. He seems to have, a really, more friendly approach to things now, which seems a little bit off, considering that we had the problem with Sherry pop off not too long ago. Granted, she was the one mainly instigating that. So I guess it's kind of acceptable that he maybe has his own opinion, but it seemed a little weird, so I'm not sure if there's an ulterior motive here, but for the most part, he seems like he's doing good, and he's not going to be causing any trouble, at least anytime soon. Moving on, we get to see that Rick has brought Pamela to the sanctuary to show her, because he's basically been taking her on a tour to go see all of the different settlements and what they have to offer. So they get there. John comes off a little bit strong, saying, who the hell are you, and all this other jazz. But he quickly changes his tune and has a more polite demeanor, which they seemingly have a very good conversation. One thing that kind of caught my eye when I was going through this segment was there's a part where Pamela, I guess she'd been talking to some of the people that lived there, and she got a lot of Negan being brought up. She's like, who's this Negan person? And she wants Rick to tell him, and Rick is like, okay, well, here it goes. But the thing that I liked was visually in the panel. I don't know if I can bring it up here. I don't even know if you can see it on there, but I just thought it was, yeah, you're not going to be able to see that. I apologize that I don't have the physical copy, but in that panel you see the ping pong being played, and I just thought that was a good way to correlate that, because Negan, loved playing ping pong in the comic when he was running things. I just thought that was a nice little subtle detail that they added in there. We actually get to see them transporting in between. This is taking place in a matter of days, not hours, because they talk about spending the night, that they'll settle up a room for them. So this is presumably the next day. They're out on the road. They're headed to the next settlement, which is the Kingdom. And we get a little bit of dialogue between the group. It's Rick and Dwight, and just kind of making up and talking about how, Dwight's like, I'm sorry, I was in the wrong, but I'm being better, because I can't remember the chick he's with, but that chick, he's like helping me through things. And Rick kind of gets this flashback of Andrea, like, oh, it's nice that you guys have each other, and we can still tell that he's dealing with the loss of Andrea. But then we get to the Kingdom, which, again, they have to kind of gut punch you a little bit, because they bring up Ezekiel and Shiva, and how they're no longer with them, and Rick's like, I think he would have really liked Ezekiel. And so I like moments like this when they bring up old characters. It makes it feel like a real situation, because there is times when you think about, you reminisce of the times, and the people that you were with. And so I like when they do that. It was just a subtle thing. They didn't spend too much time on it. It was just right. We actually don't get a whole lot at the Kingdom, just about 2 pages worth. There's not much that they really say. The next very interesting thing is when they're on their way to the hilltop, and they're riding along, and Rick is talking a little bit with Mercer, and we get some backstory from Mercer. We know that he was a Marine, and he was on leave when everything went down. And he's kind of picking Rick's brain a little bit about how they operate. It's like, is it true that it doesn't matter what you did in the old world? And, Rick's just telling it out, simple as that. And I can tell that Mercer, he's, I think he's on the fence. He's like, he said himself, he's not, he's not unpleased. Or that's a terrible word to use. I don't even think that's a real word. He's not pleased I'm messing this up. He is, he's all right with the position that he's in. He likes what he does at the Commonwealth, but he's somebody that sympathizes with the other people in his community that are not necessarily doing what they want to do or reaching their max potential, I guess. And so it's just kind of a nice thing seeing that, Mercer might be one of those components that is more of an anchor between both communities and their ideals. Moving on, we get to see the hilltop, which the first look that we get is quite impressive. The last time that I think that we saw the hilltop was when they were in the middle of their construction. They were still putting up framework. And as we see when they get here, it's basically done. At least the outside looks pretty much 100% done. And so they're commenting on how nice it looks, and we get to see Maggie come up and kind of, put that reaction into words, but then we also get to see her reaction to Pamela. She's really standoffish. There's some great dialogue that she uses to be kind of skeptical towards the governor, and I found it pretty good. As far as Rick and Carl, we get to see them come back together because Carl hasn't seen Rick in a while, so we get that little moment that they step off to the side while Maggie's showing Pamela around, and they get to clear up a few things. He's telling Carl that he's still dealing with Andrea, but he didn't realize that he's been pushing it away, trying to stay busy with the communities and making that sure that that's at the forefront of his mind. But we also get a look that they're, they use the little bit comic book excuse for exaggerated healing, where he's like, I don't know, I don't need my cane anymore. I guess it's good. Which I'm actually, I'm for it, because I didn't want to see Rick be non-physically able to do things, especially when it comes to like a fight or something. So I'm glad that Kirkman made it to where he's coming back slowly. I mean, they said that he's like, yeah, I'm not going to be winning any foot races, but at least, he's not a burden in a firefight, where they have to protect him because he can't do it himself. So I'm glad that they're giving that some, I guess, correction. We also get to see Maggie talking with, they have everybody inside the main house, and they're talking how like, oh, are we sure we can trust them? And then when they figure out Michonne's staying there, her daughter's been living there for years, Maggie's like, okay, I'll sign off of it. If you approve, Rick, we'll stand by you. So we get through all the communities. No bad things have happened. It seemingly works out pretty well. That leads us to the very end when we get that they're going to go back to the Commonwealth with a few people. It's kind of hard to tell because of the way the panels are drawn. I don't think we get to see everyone necessarily, but the ones that we know for sure that are going to be going on the trip back with the governor is Eugene, Rick, Dwight, and his girl. And so only about 5 of them, if I can count. But yeah, so that leads up that's basically the end of the issue. getting into my final thoughts of it, I liked this issue. Again, you know, it's not a spectacular issue. Nothing, I guess you could say, exciting is going on. Like I said, my enjoyment is really coming from, you know, like when they reminisce about, or, you know, when they make references to old characters, or we're seeing a lot of the story played out, maybe not so much in a direct way. I mean, and that's kind of the enjoyment you have to pull from this when, you know, the story is moving at a slower pace. But I truly think that this is probably the last setup issue. I think stuff's going to start popping off, at least in the next issue. If not then it's got to be in the one after that. I just feel like they released the new cover for the 183, and I don't know. I can probably. Okay, you guys can see that pretty well. There's basically a riot going on in the streets in the Commonwealth, and I feel like this could be. I mean, they try to throw us off with the covers, so I think this could be maybe a metaphor, just saying, oh, you know, there's turmoil going on, there's disputes going on in the upper rankings versus the lower rankings in the Commonwealth, or it could be that, you know, this is actually going to be happening inside the issue. If that's the case, I think they could go one of two ways. It could either be that when Rick gets there, there's maybe some disputes that happen when he's there, or maybe something to do with his group or their ideals coming into it lead to a riot coming about. Or I think maybe one of the more interesting plot lines would be to have the riot going on as Pamela's gone and as they're in the middle of coming back. So there's like basically nobody there taking charge of the place, and Michonne and her daughter Elodie is just having to deal with the aftermath, or, you know, the actual breakout of the riots. Which, if that's the case, that it happens when there's, I guess, nobody of higher ranking in charge, this may be due to something that her son does, because we know he's kind of a dick, and so I wouldn't put it past him to be messing up something in some regard. But needless to say, whichever direction they go, I think it's inevitable that some stuff is going to go down in the Commonwealth regardless, and we are going to see more action from Rick. And I think the reason why I say I think we're going to see Rick more at the front lines when we get to the Commonwealth is not only because he's going to be physically there, but because, you know, since they've addressed his leg and that he's more mobile and stuff like that, I feel like they're just setting that up now so that, you know, if Kirkman wants to, if he writes a situation, like, Rick can do something about it. And I feel like that's maybe where they're going. Going to have Rick come back at the forefront, at least for a little while, and deal with it the old-fashioned way. But I'm really looking forward to it. Like I said, there's so much of the Commonwealth that we still don't know. So if this next issue takes place mainly in the Commonwealth, hopefully we get to see a little bit more of what's going on there to pull ideas for the future. Maybe we'll figure out they have some enemies we don't know about. Maybe we'll figure out that there's some turmoil between new characters that we haven't been introduced yet. You know, for right now, it's anybody's guess, I would say. But I am looking forward to it, and hopefully stuff will start to pick up at a faster pace, because we have been getting a little bit slower in the story for the last several months. But anyway, guys, that concludes my review of this issue. I would say if you guys have been reading since the beginning, definitely pick it up. If you're somebody that likes to read in spurts, you could probably wait for this issue. Like I said, like the last maybe 4 or 5 issues, you probably could have left off and then come back and just read that, because this next issue is probably going to start some stuff actually going off. So we'll see. But anyway, guys, that's all for this video. If you like this, be sure to look at other content. I'll put links down in the description. We recently got a list coming up that me and Graham did for top 5 zombie games and movies, and so that should be up the day that this releases. So we'll see you guys next time. Later, Addicts.